hope that's... So let's talk about categories of infectious agents. What types of things does our immune system protect us against? Okay? So we have infectious agents that are important. It also protects us against harmful substances that are not necessarily infectious. Okay, meaning that they can be transferred from one person to another or cause outright disease. All right, for instance, let's see, you guys are all living in dorms mostly, right? So what that means is you basically don't do any cleaning because you're gross college kids. Casey's like, yeah, okay, yeah, right? But at home, mom and dad, when you go home from work, they're like, clean your room, whatever, right? When you put soap on your hands or you get bleach on your hands from doing a laundry or something like that, right? Tide Pods, they're harmful substances. You get that stuff on your hands, does it hurt? Does it hurt? No. It washes off, right? If you leave it on there, it could become caustic. Nice shirt, I like it. Okay? My name is Enrico Montoya. All right, so you get bleach on your hands, what happens? Nothing. It feels kind of slippery. You wash it off with some water, it goes away, right? No big deal. If you leave it on there long enough, something's going to happen. What is that happening? Your skin is a barrier to the outside and protects your underlying cells from harm. Okay? So that is an element of your immune system. It's protecting against a harmful substance, not necessarily an infectious agent. Okay? Soap you put on your hands every day could and does burn underlying cells. You know what it feels like when you get soap in your eyes? Does it feel good? Oh yeah. Colin's like, I love it. It's great. Okay? No, it doesn't. Right? That's why there's warning labels on it. It's like, if harmful, this swallowed. If you get in eyes, flush with water, etc., etc. If you get it on your hands, wash your hands. But the skin is a protective barrier. So the immune system not only protects from infectious agents, it does protect against other harmful substances. Okay? Well, let's talk about the infectious agents that we have. There's basically 5 categories of infectious agents. Number 1 is bacteria. Okay? Bacteria are prokaryotic organisms. Usually they can be single celled, they could be multiple cells, they could live in colonies, you name it. They are intracellular and extracellular microbes, meaning that the bacteria themselves can live inside your cells or they can live outside of your cells. There's a couple different types, right? There's called mycoplasma, which are bacteria that live inside your cells, and you have Streptococcus, which is a bacteria that lives outside your cells. Some are disease-causing, pathogenic, or what we call virulent. Others are not. Okay? Others are not. Others live on your skin, right? You have Staphylococcus aureus that lives on your skin and helps prevent other bacteria from causing infections on your skin. Okay? So there are a multitude of bacteria, different types. I'm sure you went over that in regular biology. Yes? Last year? Okay, so I don't need to go through it. They come in different shapes. They could be spherical. They could be rod-shaped. They could be spiral-shaped, spirilla, right, spirochetes, which cause Lyme disease, gum disease. Both of those are spirochetes. There's a whole different list of, we can go into it. You could take medical micro in a couple of years, okay? But our immune system works to identify these and then works to kill them off, hopefully, okay? And some examples of diseases caused by bacteria: salmonella, strep, staph infections, syphilis, gonorrhea, yeah. Okay? Questions on bacteria? Other ones. Viruses. Are viruses cells? No. We could get into the debate. Technically, our viruses are not cells. Are viruses living? That's the question. Some people say no, some scientists say yes, right? Then you have to go through the requirements, the characteristics of living things, and we can go through that debate. For the purposes of this class, no, they're not living because they need to have other host cells for reproduction. Okay? So they're not a cell, they are some type of genetic material enclosed in a protein, okay, that cause disease. Okay? We call this obligate intracellular parasites because they need other cells to reproduce, okay, to replicate. Examples of viral infections, the common cold, flu, swine flu, polio, mumps, measles, rubella, chickenpox, smallpox, HIV, herpes, Ebola. We can go on and on and on. Okay? But they are not necessarily cells, and there's only a certain couple ways that your body deals with that. But your body fights these off as well. Okay? Other infectious agents include fungi. Okay? These are eukaryotic organisms. They produce spores, and when they produce the spores, they release proteolytic enzymes that cause your body to do some funky stuff. Okay? Ringworm, diaper rash, jock itch, tinea pedis, okay? Athlete's foot, yeast infections, and histoplasmosis are some examples of infections or conditions that are caused by fungus. Okay? And then we have protozoans, other things that are eukaryotic. Okay? Protozoans in this case can be intracellular or extracellular parasites with their normal cellular function. So they could live on their own, but they also live within your cells. Malaria, toxoplasmosis, giardiasis. Right, giardia is one my poor dog has. Okay, for him, it lives within his intestine, and ever so often he has a flare-up, and it causes some diarrhea. Okay, there's a number of other ones, including the African sleeping sickness, which is transmitted by the tsetse fly within Africa. Malaria is one of the largest ones, right, caused by a protozoan that are single or unicellular parasites. Okay, and then we have multicellular parasites. Okay, eukaryotic, they live within a host, grow in size, right? Nutrients are provided by the host. Think about this in terms of animals. Dogs routinely have hookworms, roundworms, whipworms. Those are all multicellular parasitic, right, organisms. Tapeworms, flukes, blood flukes, hooks, whips, pins, trichinella, ascaris, you name it, right? But those are all worms that live within the intestine, and they utilize the host to provide nutrients. Okay? Questions on these? So these are all like infectious agents, and these are things that you can be transferred from one person to another, all right? And your immune system works to prevent and to deal with those. One other one that's not listed in that table is a prion or prion. They are not cells nor viruses, okay? They are fragments of infectious proteins, usually some type of abnormally folded infectious protein. And how they work is that it's taken in and it causes your normal proteins to fold abnormally and causes disease. Okay? They cause disease in nervous tissue. And a disease called what we call bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Okay? This is not, there's another one called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Mad cow is this. Your book is wrong. Okay? Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is not mad cow. Mad cow is bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is actually a disease called scrapie. It's similar, comes from a prion, but it actually comes from two different things. Okay, so bovine spongiform encephalopathy or mad cow disease can be spread from cows to humans by consuming infected meat. Yes. Okay, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is another form of this spongiform encephalopathy that is caused by consuming meat that is sheep-derived meat, lamb, whatever, that is infected. Okay? Scrapie is a disease and encephalopathy that affects sheep itself. Okay? This is associated with consuming tainted lamb meat, ovine meat, not bovine. Okay? Bovine refers to cow. Okay? I want to make that distinction clear. These are two different things. Mad cow does not equal Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Okay? But it is caused by a prion, an abnormal protein that's consumed and causes the normal proteins in your body to fold the wrong way. And it can be infectious. And the only way to get rid of it is to burn the entire herd of cattle. So you don't want cattle to get bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Okay? So, questions up to there. So those are some of the things that your immune system protects you against. Let's talk about the cells that protect you against these things. We've already talked about leukocytes when we talked about the blood. Okay? And what types of leukocytes are there? What are the main types of white blood cells? Neutrophils, monocytes, what else? Basophils, eosinophils, and lymphocytes. Okay? So when we talked about those, we went through the basic names, and we scratched the surface with their function. Okay? And where will we find most of those cells? We'll find them where? In the blood. Okay? So you find the leukocytes within the blood, but you'll find some of them in the blood, but the most of them you will find in other places. Okay? You'll find lymphocytes, two types. Right? T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. Macrophages. What's a macrophage? And if this is a macrophage, anything related to a white blood cell? Well, we didn't talk about it when we talked about the blood, did we? We didn't, did we? We never mentioned a macrophage in the blood. Will you find a macrophage in the blood? No, you probably won't. Okay? Well, a macrophage and these other dendritic cells, they are derived from monocytes. Okay? So monocytes float around in the blood, that's where you'll find them. But then in other tissues, those monocytes develop into macrophages, dendritic cells. Okay? So what you see here in lymphatic tissue, you have lymphocytes, two different types. You would find lymphocytes in the blood, but you may or may not know what type they are because they haven't matured yet. Okay? So the blood is really how the white blood cells, leukocytes, they travel, but when they do their function, it's off in these other tissues, in the lymphatic tissue. We'll find lymphocytes within the germinal centers of lymph nodes. Okay? You'll find them maturing within the thymus. You'll find them in the spleen. All of that in that lymphatic tissue, you'll find lymphocytes. You'll also find dendritic cells, natural killer cells, that's what an NK is, and macrophages. All right? Next, they're also found in other select organs. Using the lung as an example here. The alveolar macrophage. What's alveolar mean? It's in the alveoli, right? So in the lung, you have the lung here, right? One lung, two lungs. And inside the lung like that, you're going to have a little cluster of grapes. That is the alveolus. right? So when you inhale, air goes in, and it inflates those alveoli, right? So that's what you're looking at here, the inside of that alveolus. And there's this cell right here called a dust cell. It's an alveolar macrophage. And it helps clean up a lot of the debris and junk you inhale that could get into the alveolus. All right? It's an alveolar macrophage. What does macrophage mean? Joe.
Destroys like larger particles, or not larger particles.
How does it
like,
destroy larger stuff? John.
Like eat it.
So phage refers to consumption, eating, right? These types of cells, macrophages, they remove cellular debris, pathogens, by undergoing phagocytosis. They will wrap around the cell, bring it in, or wrap around something, bring it in, and then digest it, okay, with proteolytic enzymes, right, that help. All right, there's a dendritic cell. All right, that's just kind of residing within an epithelial tissue. This is skin and mucosal membranes. Where are your mucosal membranes? Your throat, nose, mouth, right? Eyes, your respiratory tract, your trachea, right? The lining of your stomach, they all have mucosa on top, and the dendritic cells reside in there. Any type of infection or pathogen gets in there, they will help clear it out by undergoing phagocytosis. And then in your connective tissue throughout the body, you have these things called mast cells. Right? So underlying tissue, right? Mast cells reside within the areolar connective tissue of your skin. And they're spread throughout. Some type of bacteria gets in there, activates these, and then they start to undergo phagocytosis and will start to initiate an immune response through the system. Okay, and how do they do that? How do these cells talk? So we talked about the basic cells, where they are. Are they in any particular organ? Are the immune cells in any particular organ? No. Okay, they're diffuse throughout multiple organs, and they're throughout the whole body. And that's important. So they're throughout the whole body, so it helps protect every possible incoming point. Okay? And then these cells will talk to one another. Or the immune cells will be influenced by other cells. And how are they influenced? How are they controlled? By these things called cytokines. Cytokines are kind of like growth factors. All right? They're small molecules that will change the behavior of immune cells. Okay? So they help regulate immune activity by activating or stimulating immune cells. Okay? So they're released from one cell, they bind to receptors on the target cell. All right, and they can act in a couple different ways. All right, so they can act in a couple different ways. So you have an immune cell here that's going to produce this cytokine. Okay, and its target cell is over here, and it has a receptor for said cytokine. Okay? If this cytokine works on this next nearby cell, okay, that is what's called a paracrine mechanism. Okay? Also called juxtacrine if it's right next door. Okay? Paracrine means it works on nearby cells. If this cytokine works on the cell that produces it, this is called autocrine or autocrine. Okay? And then finally, if this goes through the blood, All right, and you have some blood cells in here. And works on another cell somewhere else. Whoa. Okay, here we go. Works on a cell somewhere else. What is that called? When a molecule travels through the blood and activates or influences cells somewhere else. What's that called? It's called a hormone, but what kind of secretion signaling is that? When we talked about, what did we talk about when we talked about hormones? What system was that? Endocrine. Okay? So this is endocrine secretion. Okay? So there's different mechanisms by which these cytokines can influence other cells. They could either be produced by the cell and influence themselves, autocrine, be produced by one cell and act on another cell. So this is cell 1, cell 2, right? So that's paracrine. And if they're right next door to each other, that would be called juxtacrine. And if that cytokine travels through the blood, then it is called endocrine signaling. Okay? And these cytokines have differing effects, right? The big one here is this: controlling the development and behavior of immune cells. Okay? That's the big one. All right? And then second, it works by regulating an inflammatory response. Some of these cells are produced, some of these cytokines are produced by cells and will influence and stimulate inflammation. All right? So the nearby tissue will become inflamed, and that will help trigger and attract more immune cells, all right, and help prevent pathogens from growing. Okay? So here's a whole list of cytokines. No, you don't need to know them, right? You should kind of have an idea. We're going to talk about one of them right here, all right, interferon, okay, in a minute. But what we're talking about are these cytokines, and they work, right? So they come from T lymphocytes, a couple different cells, either lymphocytes or leukocytes, and they work in different ways, right? Interleukin helps regulate immune cells. TNF, tumor necrosis factor, destroys tumor cells. So when cells become cancerous, TNF will actually help to kill them off. All right, and then colony stimulating factor, we talked about that when we talked about the production of these leukocytes, when we talked about blood. Okay, they can help cause the proliferation, the growth of these white blood cells faster in response to an infection. And then interferon, we're going to talk about this one in a second. There's interferon alpha and beta, they're antiviral proteins, and then interferon gamma is a pro-inflammatory agent. Okay, helps promote inflammation. We're going to talk about interferon in alpha and beta when we talk about how cells are protected against viral infection. Okay? Questions on cytokines? I don't expect you to know all of them. We're going to talk about interferon in particular. I expect you to kind of have an idea. If I said interleukin, blah, 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 there's a cytokine, what does it do? In general, what do? They help control immune cells. Okay? All right. So now we have what we're protecting against and a basic idea of the cells that help to confer that protection, or at least where they lived. Let's talk about immunity. And there's two types of immunity: innate and adaptive. All right? Innate immunity. When I say something's innate, what do I mean? Taylor? It could be nonspecific, but if I'm saying you have an innate sense of, you're born with it, right? And so yes, this is nonspecific immunity, but this is something you are born with. Okay? What do we know about infants and newborns? Is their immune system robust, strong? No. But I'm telling you right now that you're born with some type of immune system. You are born with some type of immunity. Okay? And this innate immunity is non-specific. Okay? But as you get older, much of your immune system develops, and you develop immunity against specific things. Okay? That part that you develop is your adaptive immune system. Okay? And these two things, these two branches of immunity differ based upon the cells that are involved. Okay? We're going to talk about how there's a couple types of cells that are involved in the innate system, which work against all different types of things, and there's a whole host of cells that work against specific pathogens, specific viruses, specific bacteria. Okay? How they respond, they differ in how they respond. The mechanisms of how elimination of harmful substances occur, and the amount of time for response. Okay? The adaptive immune system typically takes a little bit longer because it is a specific response. Okay? Important point here, although we are going to separate and talk about these as two different systems or two different parts, they are not mutually exclusive. What does that mean? They are not completely separate. Okay? If you are exposed to a harmful substance, likely that both of these systems will impart some type of immunity. Both of these systems will work to get rid of the pathogen. Okay? They will work together. One may have a more robust, a stronger portion of it, may do more of the work, all right? But they are not separate from one another. Okay, they work together in body defenses. So here's the overview of the immune system. We break it down into innate versus adaptive, and then we can break down innate into even further parts. Okay, so innate immunity, we can separate it into skin and mucosal membranes, which help prevent entry. Okay, I told you that I have skin that are bacteria that reside on your skin. Sometimes are types of bacteria that are not pathogenic. They're not virulent. Okay, but if you get a small, almost dropped the iPad. If you get a small scrape, you have an area where that bacteria can get in. It can cause infection. Okay, so they prevent entry. On the other hand, we have non-specific internal defenses. The cells we've been talking about now have a non-specific response. Okay? So, talk about cells, macrophages, natural killer cells. They don't care what type of pathogen is present, what type of bacteria is there, whether it's a streptococcus or a diplococcus or a bacillus, they're still going to respond the same way. A non-specific response. Chemicals such as interferon and complement that are produced by your immune system to help deal with these particular pathogens. And then physiological responses, inflammation and fever. We will cover those in the innate system. That will be on your exam. The adaptive immunity will not be. Okay? Delayed response. And these are against specific antigens. Okay? So you have a specific antibody against chickenpox virus, whichever one you were vaccinated or you got when you were a kid. How many of you have ever had chickenpox? Way to go, Jack. 2. Mackenzie, you too. Okay? Me too. I got it twice. Yay. Okay? T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, they mediate two different types of immunity, whether it's cell-mediated or antibody-mediated. B lymphocytes produce antibodies, and then plasma cells will actually produce the antibodies and then confer memory. So you remember later on that you had chickenpox and you don't have to you could recognize that virus, produce antibodies, and you don't get sick again. Okay? The adaptive immunity we'll cover after spring break. Basically, it breaks down like this. There are a couple different lines of defense. First, second, third. Your first line of defense is your border patrol. Okay? We prevent entry of pathogens. If it doesn't get in, we can't get sick. Okay? So the skin, mucous membranes, secretions of the skin and the mucous membranes. Your skin produces sebum. Remember that? Your mucous membranes produce fluid. They produce mucus that will help trap these particular pathogens so that your dendritic cells can consume and remove them. Right? Prevent them from getting to where they can take up residence, grow, and cause problems. Okay? So secretions of such, and they produce things like lysozyme, an enzyme that breaks down the outer cell wall of bacteria, right? And other antimicrobial proteins. Now, what happens if something does get in? I don't want to waste time and be like, oh, hey, let me check your ID. What are you? And then I'll get the appropriate response. That takes too much time. The second line of defense, something gets through, I'm going to take care of it right away. Okay? So that's where you have your phagocytic cells, natural killer cells, and a whole group of antimicrobial proteins, including complement interferon. Okay? The inflammatory response will give you an idea about what's going on when it is. You get a scrape, bacteria get in, you have inflammation. And then also add to this, okay, fever. Okay? Fever is another response to stuff getting in. Okay? And fever helps promote or inhibit the growth of microbes, right, that can get in. And then finally, your third line of defense, your specific defense mechanisms, lymphocytes, antibodies, macrophages, and other antigen-presenting cells. All right? Some of the cells that we're going to talk about in the second line of defense, they will start to initiate your third line of defense. Okay? It's like calling up the troops from reserves. Okay? Here's your front lines. These are people within the front lines. These are your reserves. Okay? So, let's talk about the first line of defense, preventing entry. Table in your book, and I don't expect you to know all of this, but the point is the same. Skin, mucous membranes, your respiratory tract. Let's look, you go through the epidermis, the normal flora. Right, you have some bacteria that are on what we call commensal flora. They live on your skin. They will help prevent other disease-causing bacteria from growing. You produce hyaluronic acid, right? It prevents bacteria from moving around. You have sebum, sebaceous glands, right? Contain lactate and fatty acids. You have sweat gland secretion, lysozymes, defensin, dermacidin. Those are all secretions that come from the skin that prevent bacteria from growing. Okay? And then we have exfoliation, which is another thing. But preventing entry is number one. Okay? Then you have mucous membranes that also will help prevent things from getting in. All right, so the lining of your respiratory, gastrointestinal, urinary, and reproductive tracts. Okay? They also have hyaluronic acid, which will lower pH and prevent bacteria from growing. Okay, mucus, lysozyme, defensins, all of those things, right, are present on your mucous membranes. Within your respiratory tract, and a lot of infections, especially viral ones, are passed through the air, through the respiratory system. Okay? You have nasal secretions, vibrissae, right? That's hairs, thick hairs in the nasal cavity, which will help trap stuff that you breathe in. Okay? And then extensions of plasma membranes in the cilia, which will sweep and remove debris that is inhaled. Okay, so we're not just talking about, in this case, we're not just talking about pathogens or microbes that can be inhaled. There's also particles. Okay? Particles. That's why we do construction at home, you wear a dust mask. Right? So that the particles you breathe in, fiberglass, etc., they're going to get caught in your respiratory tract, and your system has to move that around. So you help prevent that from happening by wearing a dust mask. Okay? Your digestive system, urogenital system, okay, and then other stuff. All right, so the digestive system produces saliva. Saliva has lysozyme in it, okay, that will help break things down. All right, you have high hydrochloric acid in the stomach, which will be antibacterial, very low pH, will kill bacteria. You have defecation, vomiting, removal of waste, right? They'll help eliminate microbes before they can be absorbed in the blood. So you get food poisoning, that's a good thing. Yeah, right. Right. You get food poisoning in your throat, you're vomiting, it's because it's the response of your body from the presence of bacteria that are breaking up, and they want to expel that from the body before it is absorbed in the blood. And then produce other secretions that are produced by the skin, mucous membranes, lysozymes, defensins, dermacidin, what they do, and then other secretions. Lacrimal fluid. What's lacrimal fluid?
It's in your eyes.
It's your tears. Okay, it's your tears. So the lacrimal fluid will wash over your eyes, and that's an entry point, and it actually helps kill bacteria, has lysozyme that helps kill bacteria, and then cerumen is another one, waxy secretions in your ears that prevents. But think about all of the orifices, all of the openings to the outside are covered by this stuff. Okay, so all the orifices of the body have something that will help protect against entry, and then you have the natural border of the skin that helps prevent entry. Okay? Cellular defenses. So that's preventing entry. Skin, mucous membranes, gastrointestinal, all of those secretions that are involved with that, they will help prevent things from getting in. What happens when they do get in? Well, now we have a cellular response. Okay? Neutrophils, macrophages, dendritic cells. Okay? Neutrophils and macrophages, they do their job by engulfing particles. Phagocytosis. Right? And then they have hydrolytic enzymes, proteolytic enzymes within the lysosome that will help break down, that will fuse with the vacuole that's been taken into the cell and release those hydrolytic enzymes, and will break down whatever's inside of that lysosome. Okay? They also produce reactive oxygen species. Okay? Within the peroxisome. Right? And one of the cell organelles that will produce these reactive oxygen species and keep them in an area where it doesn't affect the actual cell, but they will be released into the lysosome, and they cause the bacteria to die. All right? And help destroy microbes. And then what's left off is spit back out by exocytosis. Okay? Dendritic cells do a similar thing. They destroy the particles, but they don't get rid of the waste. They use the waste, what's left over, and present that to other cells. They're like, look what I found. This is harmful. We need to make a response to this. So let's make sure that we can adapt to it later on. Okay? So those antigens are presented to T lymphocytes. The T lymphocytes are activated, and then they will go and initiate cell-mediated immunity. All right? And a cell-mediated immune response, which is part of the adaptive immune system. Okay? Macrophages can also do this as well. So you need what's called an antigen-presenting cell to start the adaptive immunity process. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what we're looking at. Okay? So neutrophils, macrophages, dendritic cells, all right, they will engulf the agent, break it down, and spit it out. It's no longer virulent. It's no longer pathogenic. It's just a collection of cellular material that's left over. It's been digested. And that stuff can then be cleared by other cells. Right? The dendritic cell will present the antigen and help initiate the adaptive immunity process. Basophils and mast cells, they promote inflammation. We know basophils circulate in the blood. Mast cells are in connective tissue, right? But when they're activated, they release these substances, they're granules, okay, that will help to increase the movement of fluid from the blood to the injured tissue and cause inflammation, okay? Histamine is one of them, increases vasodilation, blood cells vasodilate, more blood flows through the area, more fluid that goes out, right, and increased capillary permeability, more fluid leaves the vessels, causing more fluid in the tissue and goes from there. And then heparin is also released as an anticoagulant so that blood flows through easier, makes it red, inflamed, okay, warm. Other eicosanoids are released from their plasma membrane. They also increase inflammation. Okay, so we have a couple different things. The basophil releases this stuff, and now you get more fluid and stuff that's coming out of the capillary into the tissue, causing pain, tenderness, swelling, redness. Okay? Two more. Right? We have natural killer cells, or NK cells. They're formed in the bone marrow. They destroy virus-infected cells, bacteria-infected cells, tumor cells, and cells of transplanted tissue. The way they do this is a little bit different. They don't care what's there. They just run into it, or this is something we have to get rid of. They're natural killer cells. All right? They perform immune surveillance, patrol the body. Any unhealthy cell, they will get rid of. They do this by releasing perforin and granzymes. Perforin. Okay? Perforin is a protein that will implant itself, wedge itself into a cell membrane, and then more perforin will clump in around it, causing a hole. All right? You pop the hole, and then that changes the permeability from inside to outside and causes the cell membrane to burst. Okay? And granzymes enter the pore and cause apoptosis. So the enzyme goes in through the channel that's produced and starts breaking stuff down on the inside. Okay, so here's perforin, this little thing kind of, hey guys, let's go in here, pops a little hole in, causes a pore, and then the enzyme can get in and break down whatever inside the cell. Okay, we'll stop there. We will pick up this. We'll talk about fever and inflammation on Wednesday if we have class. If we do not have class, it will be on a lecture video. All right? So you are responsible up through 22.3. I suggest you read the text so you can go through from there.